friends. I'm Lindsay Morgan, Nonprofit Resource Specialist at the Community Resource EnVision Center. But my friends call me Birdie, and you can too. Welcome to A Little Birdie Told Me, formerly known as the EnVision Center News Podcast. Around here, we share the good stuff happening in North Idaho nonprofits and philanthropy, the stories behind the work, the people making it happen, and the little things I'm hearing that are making a big difference in our community. So stay tuned for a bird's eye view of the true heart of our community. Welcome to the podcast. Today, listeners, I have Dr. Sarah Lynch. She's the Executive Director of the North Idaho Pride Alliance. She's joining me today to talk about community, inclusion, I imagine, all sorts of really cool stuff, especially in the month of June. Yeah. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for thinking of NIPA.
Of course, yes. Would you start off by introducing yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what brought you to this work maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Like you said, my name is Dr. Sarah Lynch. My pronouns are she, her. And I in a previous life was actually an Air Force pilot. So really? I spent 20 years in the Air Force getting to travel the world. And I always said that I had the best view from my office up in the cockpit.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I had an amazing career. And when I retired in 2019 out of Fairchild Air Force Base, I lived in Spokane. And around that time, COVID was happening, and I met my now wife, and we met during that time frame, and I ended up moving to Idaho, and we were living happily ever after now. But in that process, we got involved with NIPA just as participants. We enjoyed the programming, and then started volunteering a bit, and in I think February of 2020 is when I decided to apply for a position on the board and was accepted. 2022 is when I did that. So I became a board member in 2022. And shortly after that, our Pride in the Park of 2022 was much more exciting than we had wanted or anticipated.
Sure.
And so I just got really involved at that point in terms of trying to find ways to support. And I have my PhD in public safety, so like emergency management and homeland security kind of stuff. So that fed well into the things that were happening at that time, and I kind of felt, and still do to this day, that it was sort of a calling to, become a part of NIPA and to be able to lead the organization as I am now. I had 20 years in the military and a lot of leadership skills and a lot of, with that public safety expertise that I could contribute, and to be able to use that to contribute towards such a vulnerable population, especially in North Idaho, is really meaningful to me. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you've been the executive director. Did I miss that? It's from 2020.
2023.
Okay.
So yeah, in 2022, I became a board member, and towards the end of that year, the board took a pause and did some reflection and decided that they wanted to grow and be resilient from that whole situation. And they chose to hire out for an executive director. And so at that time, I stepped away from the board and applied for that position and was hired.
Okay, so, great.
Yeah.
Did they have an executive director before then?
They did. Our founder, Julie Stratton, was the first executive director of NIPA. And she actually was moving away at the time, around the time that I moved to Idaho. So our paths, just briefly crossed, and I didn't really get to know her that well. But since being a part of the organization, she's left quite a legacy, and I have big shoes to fill. So.
Which I have no doubt you're doing just fine.
Thank you.
But we'll hear more about that, I'm sure.
Sure.
Are you talking about, was it a Pride in the Park in Coeur d'Alene? And you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but I was just curious if that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, the Pride in the Park in 2022 where the Patriot Front folks decided to show up. Yes.
Yeah. That was a really rough.
Traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
Really deep work that you're doing.
Yes.
Clearly. So for those listeners who are not familiar with the organization, what is it? Can you explain it to us, the mission and how it works?
Yeah. So the North Idaho Pride Alliance, or NIPA, is a 501c3 nonprofit of LGBTQIA2S plus folks and our allies and community partners throughout North Idaho who envision a place where queer folks can connect, where we belong, and where we're empowered to thrive. And we do that through a threefold approach of educating, advocating, and networking. I think a lot of folks think of a Pride organization as one that just activates during Pride Month in June, and hosts, a Pride festival or a Pride parade, and then, kind of goes dormant for the rest of the year. But as we know, queer folks don't just disappear on July 1st, and we need support all year round. And especially in North Idaho, it can be isolating. It's very rural. There's restricted access to resources. And so we really seek to, close that gap for folks and try to create safe spaces where LGBT folks can, meet up and be their authentic selves. And like I said, find resources and be empowered to thrive and become their best selves.
Great. So that is by way of putting on, is it classes or programming, or what does that look like?
It's a little bit of all of that.
Sure.
We about a year after I was hired, we were able to hire an outreach coordinator and expand our programming from just Pride Month to more year-round. And one of the first things we did was add a Queer Connections, a monthly just social gathering for folks to get together. And that's been really... well, I say a lot of times that this work is life-saving because I think it's... it's very meaningful for somebody to realize, that they're not the only one and that they're not alone. And so creating, especially like Queer Connections, a space where folks can just come together without an agenda and meet other people and, just socialize is hugely important. We also do things like a inclusive healthcare forum that we've done several years in a row on a number of topics. We did one on medical care for trans youth. We've done inclusive healthcare forums for senior LGBT seniors who are in, memory care facilities and what that looks like for those folks. And then we recently did one really to try to just teach and help, mental health providers understand how to be a better ally with just basic things like what do all the letters mean and what do pronouns, what are those for?
Sure, yeah.
So and it's interesting, I think, in North Idaho is those topics are just so stigmatized sometimes that people are afraid to ask questions or afraid to talk about it due to the, potential backlash for showing that they are supportive by asking questions. So we're trying to, create safe spaces for allies as well.
So kind of make some of that terminology well known and was there a documentary that maybe you put on or you were partnered with or something? Wasn't it last year? Yeah. That had something to do with that? Am I making this up?
Well, we've done some documentaries. Like last year we did the Gen Silent.
Yes,
was
that
the documentary for the older LGBT population that kind of like I said, kind of talked about some of the heartbreaking decisions that they're having to make when, they're going into these memory care facilities and things like that. And then we also have done viewings of the documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted a Culture, which talks about how just the language and the word homosexuality didn't appear in the Bible until 1946. And so the history of how that happened and, what those words actually mean, the Hebrew words. So it's really fascinating. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit of that? Just because I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not a theologian.
Okay. Yeah.
but without going into too much detail, there's some verses in the Bible that some people refer to as the clobber verses that newer versions of the Bible use the word homosexuality. But if you go back and look at the historical context and at the actual Hebrew words, a lot of times it's referring to non-consensual relationships or not being hospitable to foreigners.
Oh.
That's the overall theme of the story.
Okay.
And yet, they've placed that word in there to sort of demonize homosexuality, and that was never, the original intent. It didn't make sense under the historical context of when it was written, and those verses really have nothing to do with, consensual adult homosexual relationships of today.
Okay, so a lot of the work that you do probably involves kind of breaking up those myths a little bit, maybe, or just education pieces, or
absolutely
a lot of that awareness, maybe.
Yep.
That makes sense. That would be a big part of your work. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And why, for you, to summarize, why is it important for people to learn about this? What does it boil down to?
Because we're your neighbors, we're your family members, we're your parents, we're your kids, we're interwoven into your community, and we have always been here.
Right.
And we're not going anywhere either.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I think that a lot of what we're working against is an attempt to render this vulnerable population invisible, and it's much easier to hate someone if you think that you've never met somebody like that. It's much easier to demonize somebody that you can't see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for summarizing that for me. I imagine you have a lot of passion. As a lot of my work has been in victim advocacy, and so I do too have a heart for advocating for human beings, frankly. So, but I imagine with other kinds of, I guess, hate-related isolation, would come mental health issues. That's why it's important maybe to just look out for all of our neighbors and all of our family members, and because it matters to them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who are the people in the communities that you're serving, this organization?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're serving the LGBTQIA2S plus folks in North Idaho.
North Idaho. So is there a specific region or?
Well, so North Idaho Pride Alliance, we're obviously based in Coeur d'Alene, and that's where the majority of our programming exists. But we have done some work to support, organizations like Silver Valley Pride when they were, doing their first Pride Festival in Wallace. We've, are trying to expand that support, all the way up, to Bonners Ferry, down to, Moscow with Palouse Pride, and just, really make our programming accessible to folks across that 15,000 square mile
Wow.
geographic. It's the panhandle of Idaho.
Yeah. Okay.
And most of it is rural. It is under-resourced, and with the things that are happening in the legislation, more and more, there's just non-existent resources.
I think that was one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you onto the podcast was just not really, I don't think a lot of folks know what resources are available, especially this far north.
Right.
And just knowing who and what is fighting in their corner is kind of nice, I think.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
What are you seeing are the biggest needs for the community you serve right now?
Yeah. So we just finished up the we didn't just finish it up. It's been a few months that the legislative session ended for 2026. But I kind of took a look back over the last 6 years. So across the past 6 legislative sessions, we in Idaho have allowed our lawmakers to enact 16 anti-LGBT laws. And these are laws that restrict access to health care. They restrict bodily autonomy. They eliminate legal recognition and safety for transgender people. They force the outing and the surveillance of queer youth. They censor LGBT expression and visibility, and eliminate institutional support systems. So it's just a really dire situation here in Idaho for queer folks. There's an organization called the Movement Advancement Project that takes a look at all states and territories and applies a rating system. Idaho ranks 54th out of all U.S. states and territories, and we come in dead last for our gender identity policies. So, all that to say, I think the greatest need is hope. And we, attempt to try to, bring that to folks through visibility, and just being visible in the community, so that folks, who are isolated know that they're not alone. And we do that, not just in person, but also through our website, which has a resource list of LGBT affirming businesses and mental health providers throughout the region. But I mean, mostly it's located in Coeur d'Alene, just because that's where our folks are and where we know where there's the most affirming resources. But trying to expand that, like I said, out into Sandpoint, Bonners Ferry, Silver Valley, and try to include some of those businesses on our list as well.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll hear this podcast and maybe want to join.
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay. So the need is really hope.
Yeah,
you said.
I think so.
And hope for, like you said, to be seen is just such an enormous catalyst for everything we do, right?
Yeah.
Just as a person. So especially for those that might be invisible, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What to you, what does belonging look like?
I think it looks like the third portion of our vision, where I talk about how NIPA is, attempting to create a North Idaho where LGBT folks, where we belong, where we can connect, and ultimately where we're empowered to thrive. And I think that's, it's one thing to, belong, but to be able to become your best self based on your, the support of your environment, I think is super important. And I think that's, that's our ultimate goal when it comes to belonging.
Yeah, and it really provides that way dignity,
Yeah.
You don't have to be embarrassed about who you are.
Sure.
And you can enjoy the same opportunities to thrive.
Absolutely.
As everyone else. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Holding out for world peace over here.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yep.
I wanted to ask you about being an ally, because it's one thing to say, what you're doing in your life and who you are is fine with me, right?
Yeah.
But isn't it more than that to actually be an ally for this community? What does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. At times there are people who say, "Oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me." But I think that is a bit of an affront to the LGBT community who've gone through so much just to, have the rights that we enjoy today. There's not sameness. I think. I think being an ally kind of means embracing and seeing not just where we are today, but also embracing that history and embracing, life experience. I see folks that sometimes get frustrated because there's so many letters to remember, and I can see that, but I also, I think it's important to kind of do a little bit of your own homework, and those, identities are there for people to kind of explain or own their life experience and to tell you who they are. So I, would be careful that you're not imposing those labels on somebody, but allowing people the opportunity to tell you who they are. I think that's really important. And really, just listening also. I think, everybody has a different level, I suppose, of being out. I've talked about with folks sometimes that really every time I walk into a room, I am subconsciously, even before I realize it, sort of gauging how safe it is to be myself. And I think all of us do that to a certain extent. It's the iceberg theory. We don't let most people see what's below the water.
Yeah.
But we do that with our sexuality, every time we walk into a room. And so just giving room, I suppose, for people, like I said, again, to tell you who they are, whether that's something as simple as using gender neutral language. And, I'm wearing a wedding ring. Folks could say, "Oh, what does your spouse do?" instead of "What does your husband do?"
Sure.
And then I have to make a correction that is uncomfortable for everyone because, you haven't allowed for the possibility that, maybe I'm married to a woman. So I think just little nuanced things like that can help allies become safer places for queer folks.
Okay. So really, it's kind of a respective, actually it is respecting somebody for whatever reason, but in this specific case, we're talking about making room for letting people be who they genuinely are.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so much value to just being curious about learning about others. And I'm saying that very generally speaking, but I mean it more like you don't have to agree with everything everybody says or does or thinks or whatever. I think there's a lot of value to just being curious and allowing for someone to explain and that sort of thing. That's what I hope for anyway. What are the biggest misconceptions that you think you deal with in your work?
I think probably the biggest misconception is that I guess like folks see the queer community and think that it's just one giant flamboyant parade.
Yeah.
Like we all have lives and jobs and families and kids and parents, and we're just like everybody else, trying to make a living and raise our families. So in that sense, there's, a lot of commonality between all of us.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Okay. I like that too.
Yeah.
Just you're human.
Yeah,
You're doing the
exactly.
same things that we have bills just like everybody else.
Yep.
Okay. So what do you wish that more people understood about this community? You may have kind of mentioned some things, I guess.
What I just said.
Yeah, what you just said would work for that.
Yeah, that we're all, kind of have some similar goals. But I think, I wish people maybe understood more, like I said a moment ago, in terms of like all the laws that we're up against. Like there's all these other restrictions imposed on our community that we are thinking about constantly, that we can't afford to not think about, because it's a safety issue.
Sure.
And so, those are the things that are going through our head.
Sure. It
day
takes
in, day
energy
out.
to worry about your safety.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, it can wear you down, I imagine.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's tough already. And then you add to it, like I said, the isolation and the rurality of North Idaho. Folks are really having to deal with a lot of this all on their own, and that's hard.
Yeah. Dealing with anything on your own is terrible.
Yeah.
We kind of discovered that, I feel like, through 2020 and all of that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true. We all know that now.
Yeah. And we, with the work we do here at the Resource Center, we do see a lot of social isolation just because of the rural nature of where we live, like you mentioned. So for many reasons, we like to think about those folks.
Right.
And make sure that we are still reaching them with resources and things that they need.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's interesting maybe about our area, right? And other rural areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is on the horizon? I understand we just had Pride in the Park in Coeur d'Alene. Is that right?
Yeah.
How did it go?
It was amazing.
Okay.
It was an exciting year because it was our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, gosh.
So our organization was founded in 2016, and the first Pride in the Park was at Geo Epiphany Park, and maybe 150 people showed up, and there were 10 vendors. This year, we had over 100 vendors at Coeur d'Alene City Park. Despite the kind of blustery, windy, overcast day, we still had quite a few folks show up, and we had some of our local performers, and we were able to also bring in a headliner performer, Amelia Day. So that was exciting to do that for the first time. The mayor was there for kind of our opening ceremonies to issue the Pride Month proclamation again for the city of Coeur d'Alene. So that's, wonderful to see the mayor and the city council support in that. So it was a wonderful day. Another great day of Pride.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I do have some friends in Coeur d'Alene and was able to see their pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was a really great event.
Good.
So what's on the horizon? What do you have coming up?
Well, so we do have our annual drag show, Pride on the Runway, is coming up on Friday, June 26th at Honey in downtown Coeur d'Alene. So we'll have some of our local drag performers there, and it'll be a fabulous night, just like it always is. So we're really excited for that and looking forward to that. We also are in kind of collaboration and coordination with Spokane Pride, the Spokane AIDS Network, and Gonzaga Lincoln Center to put on a Pride camp at in Sidsen, which is the UCC denomination. It'll be on Lake Coeur d'Alene. So we're excited about that. That's on our website as well. That's going to be at the end of September, the 26th through the 28th. So really excited to be able to put that on.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. And then in terms of for NIPA, kind of our strategic goals for the next several years have included acquiring physical space and creating an actual Pride Center for LGBT folks in Coeur d'Alene, and using that space to kind of maximize the programming that we're executing right now, but having like an actual sense of place for LGBT folks and a visible, presence, I think really means a lot to our community. So we're working on that. Mm-hmm.
It's about visibility, right?
Yep.
I mean, in a different sense.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So do you have an office right now, or do you have a location?
It's not a front-facing office.
Okay, gotcha.
We have wonderful partners in the community who, offer up their space for us to host, different events. But it's getting a bit untenable to have to move to different spaces every time and set everything up. Like I said, our queer folks deserve to have a space that they can call their own.
Sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
If somebody is listening and wants to get involved somehow?
Yeah.
Do you have places for volunteers, or what are ways people can get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to our website, it's NI Pride Alliance, which is ALLIANCE.com. We've got, there's a place where you can click to sign up to volunteer, and you'll be referred over to our outreach coordinator, and we have an app that you can go to and sign up to volunteer for different events. We're able to have a presence at Pride events throughout the region, from Spokane Pride this weekend to all the way over, Libby Pride, Missoula Pride. So you'll have an opportunity to volunteer to help us out with those events, along with our own events, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then we've also got a calendar on that website that shows, all of the events that we've got going on. Like I talked about, the Queer Connections that happens once a month. We've also been doing a movie night where the first Tuesday of the month, I believe. So, yeah, we've got a number of events that are going on where you can just kind of come and hang out.
Okay, great. So the website sounds like
it
has
the website.
A lot of that information. Do you have social media too,
Yep,
right?
Definitely. We're on Facebook. We're also on Instagram.
Great.
So, uh-huh.
I think I follow you guys on both.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So what else that we haven't covered would you want to make sure that you talked about today?
Yeah. I want to mention that we were really excited this year for our 10-year anniversary. Our founder, one of her dreams was to have a Pride Scholarship for queer youth in our area. And we were able, like I said, during this 10-year anniversary, to award an inaugural Pride Scholarship to not one, but to two queer youth in our area who are going on to pursue higher education through a 4-year college degree. So, it's super meaningful to be able to say that, we're investing in our youth, but we're able to do that primarily because of the generosity of our community in supporting our Pride Endowment Fund. So I would just urge folks, if you go to the website, take a look at that donate button as well. We've got several ways to donate, but that Pride Endowment Fund is being used to support queer youth in our area who are going to be our future leaders. So,
yeah, you bet. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I am glad you mentioned that. I want to ask you, what gives you hope for the future of this community?
I've been running and or helping run Pride in the Park since 2022. And I mean, it's a crazy day on that day. This last one, I was up for 17 hours, and I'm getting too old for that. But
Me too.
Yeah. There's always a few moments in time where I'm able to just stop and kind of look around and take it all in, and seeing folks, be able to be out there in a safe space where they're just expressing so much joy and love in being their authentic selves, and having, all these access to the resources that we have at the at Pride in the Park through vendors, and just seeing the affirming businesses and enjoying the music and the food. I think that's, for me, kind of what it's all about. That's what gives me the hope, is seeing that we're accomplishing our mission when we create that safe space in Coeur d'Alene for folks to come out and be themselves.
Just seeing that joy that can be experienced still, no matter what.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Mm-hmm. That does seem very hopeful.
Yes.
Well, I have a fun little kind of a this or that quick fire round, if you don't mind.
All right.
Don't overthink it.
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions, and you just say what the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
So, first one, mountains or lake?
Oh, both.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Okay.
Especially in our area.
Yeah.
You kind of get to have both.
This is incredible. I love it here. Yeah.
Very well. Very good job on that first one.
Good. Thanks.
Sunrise or sunset?
Oh, man.
More of a night person or morning?
I'm more of a sunrise. I fall asleep by 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but I'm an early riser. So,
there you go. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer in-person meetings or Zoom?
Oh, in person for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Books or podcasts?
Oh, man.
Neither.
I haven't read a book for 4 years since I took this job.
I was going to say, you probably don't have time to read a book.
No, I haven't had time to read a book lately. And I wear hearing aids, so I don't know. The podcast isn't the best way for me to...
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yep.
How about movies? Should I have thrown that one in?
Oh, sure. I do enjoy movies.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Grant writing or event planning?
Ooh, grant writing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why does that surprise me when people like writing grants?
Well, I'm an introvert.
Okay,
so,
that's fair.
The events are, they're always fun and they're fabulous, but
of course.
It drains a lot from me. Not to say that the grant writing drains as well.
Sure, it takes up some energy still, but
it
you
does.
Kind of prefer that.
I feel like there's a method, to it, and I don't know. I have an approach to it that makes sense, I think.
Sure.
And I'm not always successful, but
hey, that's the nature. Behind the scenes or mingle in the crowd? I think you kind of just answered this
behind
one.
the scenes, for sure.
And then let me ask you, what is your favorite thing about Pride Month?
I think it's what I just mentioned about, being able to stop and see people feeling safe and to be themselves, or having those conversations with folks. There were several folks actually who expressed to the staff at this last Pride in the Park that they were scared, honestly, to come to Idaho. But as soon as they, kind of saw how organized everything was and how our safety team was taking care of business, that they were comforted and able to just kind of settle in and enjoy the day. And so, seeing that really, it's what it's all about, I think.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. It's been really nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all this magical work you're doing and trying to just really have people seen and safe and creating that space for that. So Thank you for doing that. And thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, friends, thanks for listening. I'll be back soon with more of the good news, but in the meantime, you can keep up with us on Facebook, Instagram, and at crecIdaho.com. Until next time.